There's a certain kind of fall that happens slowly at first, and then all at once. For Katy Perry, one of the most recognizable pop stars of the last 2 decades, that fall has been building quietly for some time now. But in the past few weeks, what was once a slow drift has turned into a full-on spiral. From professional setbacks that critics couldn't ignore, to personal choices that put her in the crosshairs of public opinion, to allegations that have now drawn the attention of law enforcement. The storm around Katy Perry isn't calming down. If anything, it's intensifying. Today, we're going to walk through everything that's happening, why it matters, and what it could mean for her future. Let's start with the music, because that's always been the foundation everything else is built on. Katy Perry became a global phenomenon in the early 2010s. Songs like Roar, Firework, Teenage Dream, and California Girls were inescapable. She held the record, alongside Michael Jackson, for having 5 #1 singles from a single album. She filled arenas. Her Super Bowl halftime show drew over 118 million viewers. For a while, she was untouchable. But that was then. Her 2024 album, titled 143, arrived with real anticipation from a portion of her fan base. And it crashed. Critically speaking, it became the worst-reviewed project of her career. The lead single failed to make any meaningful impact on the charts, and the rollout felt out of step with what the public wanted from her in that moment. Music journalists who had once celebrated her pop instincts were now questioning whether she still had them. The decision to work with producer Dr. Luke on that project made things considerably worse. Dr. Luke, whose real name is Lukash Gottwald, has been at the center of a highly publicized legal dispute with Kesha, who accused him of sexual and emotional abuse, accusations he has denied. His involvement in Perry's project reopened a conversation that many fans weren't willing to let go of. For a pop star trying to rebuild momentum, the backlash was swift and damaging. Even the tour, called the Lifetime's Tour, which by most financial accounts was a commercial success, didn't fully repair the damage. Ticket sales were strong in certain markets, but the cultural conversation around her had already shifted. She wasn't being celebrated the way she once was. She was being questioned. Beyond the music, a series of decisions in her personal and public life drew criticism that kept piling on. In April 2025, Perry joined Blue Origin, Jeff Bezos's private space company, on a rocket flight into suborbital space. What might have seemed like an exciting adventure became a PR disaster almost immediately. The public response was withering. Critics pointed to the optics of a celebrity jetting to the edge of space, while millions of fans struggled economically. The backlash lasted for weeks, and it left a mark. Then came the end of her long-term relationship with actor Orlando Bloom. The two had been together for nearly a decade, and their split, which became public in July of last year, drew enormous attention. For someone already navigating a difficult professional period, the personal loss added another layer of scrutiny from the press and the public. Not long after, Perry was photographed at Coachella alongside Canadian former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and the pair confirmed their relationship publicly by showing up in matching outfits. The timing and the spectacle of it all kept her name in the headlines, but not always in flattering ways. In an era where public figures are constantly evaluated, not just for what they create, but for who they are seen with and how they carry themselves, every appearance carries weight. And not all of that weight was going in her favor. It was in this context, a struggling album cycle, lingering criticism, a new relationship drawing attention, that Perry made what seemed, at the time, like a harmless joke online. After Justin Bieber made his headline-making debut at Coachella, a music publication shared a social media post highlighting the performance. Perry commented on it with a sarcastic quip related to streaming, the kind of light, playful banter that celebrities engage in all the time. To most people scrolling by, it was a throwaway moment, but it caught the attention of someone who wasn't laughing. Ruby Rose, the Australian actor best known for roles in Orange is the New Black and other high-profile productions, responded. And her response was not playful. In a series of public posts that spread rapidly across platforms, Rose made a serious allegation against Perry, claiming that Perry had sexually violated her at a Melbourne nightclub back in 2010, when Rose was in her early 20s. The allegation was specific, graphic, and detailed. Rose explained that she had stayed quiet for nearly 2 decades because of how deeply the experience had affected her, and that only now did she feel ready to speak publicly. She said she had photos. She said there were witnesses, and she challenged Perry directly, telling her to take legal action if she disagreed, because, in Rose's words, the event actually happened. Within hours, the internet was ablaze. The allegation became one of the top trending topics in the English-speaking world. Perry's team responded within 48 hours. The statement was brief and deliberately precise. It denied the allegations entirely, calling them categorically false, and describing them as reckless and dangerous lies. It also noted that Rose had a documented history of making public accusations against others that had subsequently been denied. Every word of that statement was chosen carefully. The phrase, categorically false, leaves no middle ground. The reference to Rose's prior accusations begins to build a narrative around the credibility of the accuser. This wasn't standard celebrity damage control language. It read like something drafted with legal strategy in mind. That legal undertone makes more sense when you understand how defamation law works in Australia, where the alleged incident took place. Unlike the United States, where public figures must prove a statement was made with actual malice, a very high bar, Australia places the burden on the person who made the statement. They must prove what they said is true. If they cannot, they lose. This is why Australia has become a destination for high-profile defamation cases. Celebrities including Geoffrey Rush and Rebel Wilson have both pursued and won significant cases in Australian courts. Perry's team's language, particularly calling the claims reckless lies, maps closely onto what you would need to establish in the early stages of such a case. Perry herself said almost nothing publicly. Her only personal moment during the controversy was posting the cover of a 2013 song of hers on her Instagram story, overlaid with the phrase, "I love you." The song contained the lyric, "The truth will set you free." Make of that what you will. Then the story moved into territory that made everything significantly more serious. Authorities in Victoria, Australia confirmed that a formal police investigation had been opened following Ruby Rose's allegations. The case was assigned to the Melbourne Sexual Offences and Child Abuse Investigation Team, known as SAUCIT, a specialized unit that handles exactly this category of case. Police confirmed the alleged incident occurred in 2010 at a licensed venue in Melbourne Central Business District, and stated that the investigation was ongoing. This changed the nature of the story entirely. When something lives only on social media, it exists in the court of public opinion, fast, loud, and often forgotten within a week. When law enforcement steps in, the rules change. Evidence matters. Witness accounts matter. Public statements made by both parties carry legal weight. The story is no longer just trending. It is being formally examined. For Ruby Rose, this represented a significant escalation of her claims. She subsequently announced she would stop discussing the matter publicly, citing the ongoing investigation as the reason. For Perry, it meant that a situation her team had forcefully denied was now part of an official legal record. As if the situation weren't already complicated enough, other voices began to emerge. Josh Kloss, an actor and model who appeared alongside Perry in her Teenage Dream music video, spoke publicly again about an experience he has described before. He alleged that at a private party in California in 2012, Perry had physically exposed him without his consent in front of others. He described feeling shocked and humiliated in the moment, and said he had carried the memory of it for years. Kloss had spoken about this publicly once before, in 2019, and at the time it received limited attention. With Perry's name now dominating news cycles for a different reason, his account resurfaced and found a much larger audience. He made clear that his motivation wasn't revenge. It was, in his words, simply the need to finally say out loud something that had been sitting with him for over a decade. Perry's team did not issue a separate response to Kloss's renewed statements. One of the most important and complicated elements of this entire story is something that gets lost in the noise of online discourse: the question of evidence. A 2011 article written by Ruby Rose herself, which has resurfaced during this controversy, describes a chaotic night out in Melbourne that appears to coincide with the same evening she now describes in her allegations. In that earlier account, Rose writes about drinking heavily, losing track of herself, and ultimately vomiting near Katy Perry, framing the night as a personal low point that pushed her toward sobriety. At the time, she wrote that nothing truly serious had happened beyond the personal embarrassment of that evening. Her exact words were, "Nothing horrific happened." That earlier account directly contradicts the severity of what she is now describing. That doesn't automatically mean her current account is false. Trauma is processed differently over time, and people do come to understand past experiences in new ways. But it does introduce a genuine complication. In a case already dependent on memory, the existence of a prior account that tells a different version of the same night is significant. The nightclub where the alleged incident took place, Spice Market, closed permanently on January 1st, 2026, just months before Rose went public. Ownership had changed. Staff had dispersed. Any physical records from 2010 would be long gone. Security footage from that era, even if it had ever existed, would have been deleted within weeks under standard Australian nightclub protocols. What investigators have to work with now is almost entirely memory and testimony. So here's where Katy Perry's situation is right now. Her most recent album failed commercially and critically. A string of public missteps has steadily eroded goodwill. A serious allegation made on social media became an international story within 24 hours. Her team responded in language that suggests legal action may be coming. A formal police investigation is now underway in Australia. A second accuser has renewed his claims, and a piece of writing from the accuser's own past complicates the picture significantly. None of this resolves quickly. Police investigations take time. Legal proceedings, if they come, take even longer. The court of public opinion has already rendered a loud and divided verdict, but that verdict shifts every day with every new development. What is clear is this: Katy Perry is navigating the most difficult period of her public life, and the path forward is uncertain. Whatever the truth of any of these allegations turns out to be, and that truth belongs to courts and investigators, not to trending topics, the situation is not getting better. At least not yet. We'll be watching, and we'll keep you updated as this continues to unfold.